Welcome to Ripstop on the Record, the podcast for makers, by makers, where we talk about all things MYOG. Brought to you by Ripstop by the Roll. I think it's good, right?
Yeah, I think that was a good take.
Hey everyone, welcome to Ripstop on the Record. I'm Jameson.
And I'm Avery.
There comes a time in every maker's journey where you probably consider buying an industrial sewing machine. The feelings of excitement can quickly dwindle as a monsoon of fear hits you, and I may or may not be speaking from experience here. Even the most accomplished makers can feel pretty overwhelmed by some of the terminology and some of the specs that an industrial machine carries. On this episode, we caught up with a good friend of the podcast, Matt Evans, to get his tips on buying an industrial machine. We'll answer your burning questions like, what's a drop feed? What's needle feed? What should you ask a Facebook Market seller? How do I transport a machine like this? Questions like that and a lot more that we'll answer here in just a minute.
Before we get to the podcast, we have a few announcements for you. We are hosting a maker meetup on Saturday, February 22nd. Woo-hoo. From 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. in Durham at Umstead State Park. So if you're in the area, please come out and hang out with us. It is a free event for makers to meet up, hang out with like-minded people, share your projects, talk about sewing, all the good stuff. There's going to be free items, raffles, good vibes. Jameson will be there. You can talk to him about the 16 things he's made this year so far and what else he's going to make. For more details and registration, click the link in the show notes to register so we know you can make it.
Avery, I have a confession to make. Two confessions. One, I haven't sewn anything yet this week, and it's already Tuesday. And two, I've started to use patterns.
Oh, 2025. Yeah. He's a new man.
Yeah, new year, new maker. You know, that's what the kids say. But yeah, I got a t-shirt pattern and a crew neck pattern. So I'm pretty interested. I really want to make like merino t-shirts. Anyway, yeah, I'm not sure about the whole pattern thing yet, but it's opening some opportunities for me. So stay tuned, everybody. You can let you know in a couple episodes if it's going well or not. But yeah, speaking of projects, we have restocked a couple new products that should help your projects. If you've been looking for anything that is called 4.0 Pocket Mesh, Alpha Direct 4004, Alpha Direct 4008, or some new Gutermann thread colors, then you're in luck. By the way, when I was making this reel for the new products, I didn't realize that we have 37 colors of Gutermann thread. That's insane.
That's a lot.
I honestly didn't know that, which I feel pretty dumb saying that, but it even includes new colors like soft purple and sage, which are like brand new, kind of new colors to us that we have thread for. So your color matching options are kind of endless. So go check all of those out, but especially the thread. Gonna maybe use more colored thread now.
Absolutely. One exciting announcement coming your way. If you want to get paid to make your own gear, then we have a great opportunity for you. Our 2025 maker sponsorship is open and we are accepting applications from now until February 23rd, which is a Sunday. Those who are selected will get $250 cash, a $500 Ripstop by the Roll gift card, and other really awesome benefits. Plus, you get to be friends with me for the entirety of the year and talk to me about all of your projects, which is super great. We're really looking forward to it. If you've submitted an application already, thank you. And we're really taking our time to read over everyone's application and look at your pictures. So we appreciate you, and make sure to submit your application before the deadline.
I'm going to give you a sneak peek to all the listeners. If you're going to apply, read and follow directions carefully. That's my secret tip, is if you fill out the application more intentionally, the higher chance you have. Let's put it that way. Last thing before we get on to the main part of the episode, please make sure you like, follow, subscribe, review, do kind of whatever it is you can to let us know if you like the show. Believe it or not, every little rating and subscription very much helps the show. It helps us get to in front of other people and helps us prove why this show is really valuable to the makers and to the community. So if you haven't already given a little 5-star or 4-star review or something, then please do that. Just scroll to the bottom of your feed or whatever platform it is you're using and look for the review bit. If you feel so inclined, leave us a review, a written review would be awesome. It's not like we have thousands of these. We actually read every single one. So if you want to get in front of us, then do that. As always, you can send us a message on Instagram or an email. We do really love hearing from people. So if you have any questions, let us know and we'll answer it on the next episode. All right, let's get on to the pod. All right. Hey, Matt. It's been many, many, many weeks now, all of I think 3 episodes since we had you, but you're already back. So welcome back to Ripstop on the Record.
Happy to be back, and this is one of my favorite topics, so I'm looking forward to this one.
Out of all the episodes you've been on, where does this one rank in excitement?
Honestly, I don't think anything could beat the Maker Challenge.
That's
That has to be top one for me. That was a
Yeah.
really fun one. Marathon episode, fun content. But this is up there. This is easily top 3.
Yeah. I'm excited about this one. I was just saying when we were pre-recording is Carter's been teasing me because this topic is exactly where I am personally right now. So this episode's kind of for me, but luckily some of you asked for it too, so I can make it valuable. But yeah, today we're talking about how to buy a used industrial sewing machine. So I guess from a very basic level for people that are not thinking about doing this yet, why would they want one?
Well, the reason why you'd want one is you're looking for something with more reliability, more accuracy, generally longer lifetime of use. Those would be the main reasons you'd want one. The other thing is, home machines have limits, and you can really speed up your workflow by having the right tool for the job. And normally, it's an industrial machine that's specialized for that exact job that will help you get faster.
As we go through this, do you think that someone who is a regular DIYer would be buying a different industrial machine than someone who might be making their own gear and selling it as small operation or cottage company?
Honestly, I think it's kind of the same. Like it all depends on price point. But it would be mostly the same machines that you would want to pick. And it's largely dependent on what you're trying to make too. I think that's the other big distinction. Like if you were trying to start a clothing brand versus trying to start a custom backpack brand, you'd have a lot of different needs. And so you definitely get different machines for that. Uh, that said, you're probably looking for generally the same things, big or small brand.
Yeah, so an important thing that we're focusing on today, this information will be valuable if you're buying a new machine, but as you can tell in the title, we're pretty locked in and focusing on used machines. Matt, you have a lot of experience buying used industrial machines already. Besides the obvious, what are some reasons that we're focusing on helping people buy used industrial machines instead of going the new route?
So I've done both, right? So I've got 4 industrials, maybe 6 machines total. 2 are new, 2 are used. The reason you pick used most of the time, especially if you're just a DIYer or you're like intermediate level, is you can get more bang for the buck. You can get an expensive machine that will do everything that you need it to with the notion that the machine is going to last a very long time because of it being an industrial machine. So you aren't paying the extra price just for something brand new when it doesn't have to be a serviceable tool for you. So that's why I think normally people should pick used first is because there's already a bunch out there. You can normally find what you're looking for in a used price versus having to buy new.
Yeah, that makes sense. I also found, I live in a fairly populous area, like right in the Triangle of North Carolina, but I think kind of no matter where you are, as long as you don't live in like a really rural place, you're definitely gonna find used industrial machines on Facebook Marketplace and around. Whereas I know there are sewing machine companies around here, but I don't know if there's a store that carries brand new industrial machines near me. Like I could go look at like I could a used machine.
It's a lot more rare, that's for sure. When I was in Boulder, I was spoiled because Ralph's Industrial Sewing Machine is one of the
Mhm.
biggest suppliers of new machines. They have
Yeah.
every brand you want to see. So I just drive 40 minutes, pop in there, and go try stuff out. but not everyone has that luxury. Like, I don't have that luxury here in Florida, although we do have a new machine dealer kinda close. They don't have nearly the inventory that the big places do, so that's the other part is availability. It's gonna be tough to find a new dealership for the brand spanking new model of whatever machine you're looking for. But if you are close, they also are going to sell you used machines there too. And they're likely to give you service and support. So, like, that's worth looking into if you're in a big metro area.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so getting into the factors of a machine to consider when you're looking at a used one, there's kind of four main factors we're going to talk about. We'll kind of go one by one real quick. First is the type of machine. Can you give us kind of a 1,000-foot view of what types of machines you're going to encounter?
The most common you're going to find is a drop feed machine. So, that's going to be like the Juki 8700 or any of those variants or any of the knockoff variants, which we can talk about later too. That is like your standard home machine turned into an industrial machine, that same feed mechanism. So that's going to usually be the cheapest industrial you're going to find and the most plentiful. The other is going to be the triple feed or the compound feed machines like the 1541, which is the walking foot. You can also find zigzag machines that will do straight and zigzag, but or just zigzag. And then beyond that, you'll have cylinder arm machines and needle feed machines. They're all very specialized to do exactly one stitch normally, and you should keep that in mind when you're looking for it. That said, the straight stitch is going to be just fine for everybody. You just need to pick generally how much you're going to be putting under the foot of the machine before you pick which type of machine you're going to get.
Would you recommend starting with weight, kind of looking at like, okay, what weight machine? There's like lightweight, medium weight, and heavyweight machines for the most part. So starting with the weight and then going with like, okay, based on, if you're gonna have a heavy duty machine, you're probably going to have like a needle feed. It's probably, you'll start to kind of fill in the rest, right?
Yeah, I mean, 1,000 foot view of that is light to medium is drop feed machine.
Okay.
That's going to be the most common option. Then beyond that, kind of the middle ground is just needle feed. And mind you, drop feed is just the feed dogs moving the fabric. Needle feed will be the feed dogs plus the needle moving. Then you're going to have the triple feed, which is that plus the walking foot. And those will all go in order of light to the walking foot, which will be the heavier duty.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's a good way to think about it. Okay, so those are the kind of the types of machines. You're going to see stuff like lock stitch and things like that. Um, Lock stitch is pretty basic. That just means it has the option to go like do the back tacks, right?
Yeah. And honestly, that's just jargon thrown around a lot of the time
Yeah.
too. But that is an important factor is some machines you'll find don't have a reverse lever. Turns out that's kind of a critical thing. And I'm
Yeah.
not sure why so many machines were made without reverse levers or that function, but you definitely need to make sure that the one you get has it because that is just a huge pain. I wouldn't want a machine. I wouldn't want to spend money on a machine that doesn't have that.
I've noticed too. I've only worked on 3 industrial machines, and 2 of them have had this feature. But the high lead that we have here at work, it has a reverse button that's like right near the needle, like kind of right there instead of the bar, all the way to the right. And I really love that feature. I've noticed as I've been looking for them, a lot of them don't have that button, and you kind of have to like remove, take your hand all the way over. And I've noticed how accustomed I've come to that, just being able to like hold the my pattern piece or my fabric in place while clicking the back tack. You kind of have like 2 hands in like right in the right in the main area, and I'm gonna kind of miss that if I end up with a machine that doesn't have that.
That's on a lot of newer automated machines now.
Mm,
So like if you were to purchase, heck, I don't even think the 8700-7, which is, the super automated, super common drop feed machine has that.
yeah,
But like my needle feed behind me, for example, does have that feature and it is nice, but it's the only
yeah,
machine I have with it. If you
interesting.
don't have that, you're going to have to get good at acrobatics. So my strategy now is if I want to hold everything, I will crook my right elbow and slam
Yeah.
that down on the reverse lever while I'm holding everything else. So you have to live and learn and kind of adapt. But if you're buying a newer machine, then yes, that's an awesome feature to look for.
Interesting. Okay, we're getting down to specifics. I need to get back to the piece. So those are the types of machines. Top brands, we'll kind of go for like red flags and other things, specific machines to look out for. But top couple brands, what are you listing for recommendations for people to check out?
For me, Juki first, always. I love Juki machines. I've never been let down by a Juki machine. Like, I've never done any maintenance on my Juki machines, straight
Wow,
up. Like, I'll
that's
I'll
impressive.
do oil or something.
Sure.
I've never had to replace parts. They're great machines. Like the 1541, I've had 7 years. I've only ever changed the oil, and I abuse
Wow.
the crap out of that. My machine, like, is used
Yeah,
every day. It's on everything. So that's kind of personal bias to a degree, but I know a lot of people in the industry share that opinion that Juki makes
sure.
some of the best top quality machines. After that, you have other big name brands that you definitely can rely on too, like Singer. My Singer machine's very old and it's fantastic. Like it doesn't skip a stitch. It's also been the same level of reliability. Or FOF machines, FAF, I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's FOF. They also are known for really reliable machines, and there's a million brands out there. Those are the top 3 I generally say people should look at just because I have some experience with them. I know a lot of people that do have experience with them, and they've been good. They're not junk that falls apart.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I've only worked on one high lead, but I can say the high lead that we have here. I'll put the specific product number or like the machine number in the description. I don't remember off the top of my head, but the high lead that we have here has been really fantastic. Just to give you all an idea of how much it gets used, I'm keeping track of all the number of projects I make this year. I've never done this before, but I'm taking a picture of every single thing that I make and then tracking it like in a photo album on my phone so that I can kind of keep an eye. I've made 16 things so far this year, like different things ranging from like backpacks, Alpha Direct hoodies, bag liners, beanies, duffel bags. I've made all that stuff so far this year. That machine's been used on every single one of those. So that is getting a ton of use. It's not like it gets used once a week in the shop. Like I'm sewing a little bit on that thing at least every single day. And it's been fantastic. I've been using it really consistently since I started working here. I've used a console once. We got a console in the shop. It got damaged in shipping. So I only used it for like a week and we realized that it was broken. So I really can't speak to that one at all. But those are brands that I've seen, and like I mean, Carter was willing to buy a console, and he's extremely picky. So like I've heard good things about him, but I know that Carter has like a Juki, I think it's a 5550 at his house. So like Juki definitely seems like maybe the number one brand.
When you look around at people's shops, you notice a lot of Juki. Like if you look at, Enlightened Equipment posted some shop tour a year ago or something like that. They're running all Juki machines, and a lot of them are the similar. They're like the 9000Cs, which are like a drop feed, super customizable via like apps and all that. Not recommended
Mm,
for the maker because it's too complex in my opinion. But when you see these big fabric like houses or sewing houses and they're working with only Juki machines, it kind of shows you there's probably something to it and why they picked them. It's likely reliability and accuracy.
yeah, that makes sense. Um, Last thing to look out for, just stitch types. We kind of touched on it, but virtually every industrial machine you're going to see is kind of just a straight stitch, and that's all you need really. What else would you say about stitch types at industrial machines?
That is kind of all you need to a degree, unless you start getting into like very serious making where it's like you are required to use other stitches. Like maybe you need to use a zigzag stitch for binding, elastic binding, and there are specific use cases. But if you're going to buy your first industrial machine, get something with straight stitch that's just going to cover the materials you use often, and then everything else can be covered. Buy a home machine. Like a cheap home machine will do all those, the zigzag stitch, the cover stitch, the overlock. It will do a lot of those things for you for cheap.
Nice. The next thing on our list is talking about motors and the sewing machine. So let's get into the difference between a servo motor and a clutch motor and why you would want one over the other.
Okay, so I actually add an extra rank here. So there's clutch, servo, and then servo with needle positioner. So
Oh,
your clutch motor is going to be your bottom of the barrel. It's loud. It's super loud. You have no control. It is constantly humming while you're using it. And I know because that's how I started with this. It is not a pleasant experience. And for about $100, you can fix that to a servo motor. Well, what's the benefit of that? Well, it weighs about half as much. It's quiet. You actually have control. and it's not going to make that loud humming noise the entire time that you're working and vibrating your table. Okay, so that's your middle tier, and that's what most people get. Now, the top tier, in my opinion, is like it's worth an extra $30, $40. And by the way, we're talking this is a $130 motor with a needle positioner. So it's the same thing as a normal servo, but instead you have something that will stop and start your needle in the exact position that you want it to
Uh,
when you finish the stitch. So when you start talking about accuracy of your stitching, this will help tremendously. So you start sewing, you're sewing. Oh, I need to stop. Great. Well, now the machine is going to stop with the needle down or up, depending on what you pick. And for me, it's always down. The reason for that is I want my positioner down into the fabric every time I stop so I can rotate. So I'm sewing, I'm at a corner. Oh, perfect. Now I need to stop. The needle's
yeah.
down. Then you can lift the foot. Then you can rotate your entire piece and then begin again. To me, that's the gold, platinum, diamond top tier of all motors. It's reliable. They last a really long time. They're cheap and it helps you with a lot of headache while you're actually working.
That makes a ton of sense. That's actually really cool too. I also think about with it leaving when you if you have it set in the needle down position, then like if you have to stop mid thing for any reason, I don't know, ceiling tile falls out next to you while you're sewing, like you don't lose like everything that you're holding together. Like everyone knows how precarious it is to like be like, pulling panels together and trying to like put it through the machine. And that like at least stops you in a place where you don't like just lose all momentum.
Exactly. It holds it all together for you. And then the other part is you can press down with your heel and that will take the needle out and you'll lift your foot depending on the machine as well. So when you're done stitching, oh, good, finish my lock stitch and I'm done, I can just click that. And it also speeds up that ending process too.
Okay, so yeah, actually that's a good point. So on the high lead, the way that we have it here in the shop is, pedal forward, sew forward, hit the heel, and it kind of does the back three, front three, and then we can set it to cut it or not. How do you have yours set up with it with that needle placement? So like you finish it, if you hit the heel, that also does the back tack and then cut it, or do you have to hit it twice to do the back or the lock stitch?
On my 1541, it doesn't have any of these automated features.
Okay,
All it has is the needle up or down. So
okay,
for me, it's forward, start sewing,
yep,
and then I have to do the reverse and forward again. And then at the end, when I press the heel, it's just lifting up the needle. Now on the
okay,
needle feed machine behind me, yes, that will do all of those things, and that's how I use it. Exactly like you said.
okay, gotcha. That's good to know. Okay, so types of machines, stitch types, all these things. Now, when you're on the hunt, let's transition to like somebody sort of getting to the point where they're going to start to look. And for everyone thinking like what machines I want to look for, a little bit later, we will go over maybe recommended models to look out for if you want to start looking at specifics, and we'll even give you some places. But where are you looking for machines, Matt? Like where do you find these? Where's your preference, and maybe where would you recommend first time industrial machine buyers look?
Go to Facebook. Go to Facebook Marketplace. That is the place to go, in my opinion. There's also Craigslist. There's also OfferUp. I don't know if that's still around, but any of those services where people can list, that is the place to go because you're going to just have an individual selling it to you and it's going to be a modest price. The other part of that is you have a human you can call and talk to, or they'll send you a video. So Facebook is my top one every time. The other reason for that is it's really just user friendly to scan for a certain distance from where you are and to go meet up with that person. You also know it's a person and you can look at their profile. So you're not going to, encounter any trouble at the meetup because you know exactly who they are before you go, and same for them. So that's my pick every time is Facebook.
The funniest thing about looking for an industrial machine for me nowadays is learning how many people have industrial machines that you don't know about. Like there's so many more sewing machines, not just industrials, but all machines, sergers and everything. Like you realize, I don't know, I've seen so many in the last couple of weeks that I've been looking, like alteration shop closing or sew shop closing. Like I didn't know there was a sew shop there. Or like, Betty down the street, who knew she had 17 machines for sale? Like you see so many more than I ever realized were around.
When you start looking, you'll have that realization too. And it's like, there's a
Yeah.
lot out there. And the funny thing is, it half the like part of the time when you see the big posts where it's like 10 machines are for sale, it's almost always some sort of shop like alterations, like
Yeah.
you said, closing out, or some factory or some sort of liquidation like that. I'd say most of the time though, it is really just some hobbyist.
Hmm.
They got something else that suited their needs, or they quit the hobby, or maybe they had like a sewing business in their spare time, and then all of a sudden they didn't need to do it anymore. That's generally what you're going to find.
Yeah.
And those are the people you want to negotiate with and deal with, because hopefully they know exactly what they have and they can display that information to you somewhat accurately.
Yeah. One other recommendation I would give for like looking for machines, this is easy and this may not be something that everyone has access to, but there's something called the state surplus here in North Carolina. Every state has them. It depends on, if you live in a state like Florida, like Matt, you could be several hours away from your state capital or the surplus place because it's a huge state. For us here, they're kind of in every major city, and the biggest ones here in Raleigh. But I actually texted Matt a couple weeks ago about a bid that I put in on a couple machines. But the state has different systems, whether it's for schools, colleges, all different things where they have to accumulate equipment. So our state surplus, there were two Juki DNU 1541 sevens, I think now, like heavy-ish duty machines that were really nice, but the final bid for those both machines ended up being $560. Both machines went for that price. The state doesn't really care. They just want to get rid of them. So there are really amazing deals that you can find there. It's really hit or miss. You can't always tell if they're going to have them or not. I haven't seen another machine on there since then, but yeah, just another place to keep out. But I've been doing a lot of my searching on Facebook Marketplace, and I've got a couple good hits in a couple weeks. I will probably land on one in the next month, assuming the right one pops up. But yeah, just another place to keep an eye out for.
The MSRP on those, by the way, each is $5 to $7,500,
That's crazy.
like 5,000 to 7,500.
Yeah,
Like they're very like that's the 1541 I have, plus the automation, like
yeah.
the cutting, the back tacking, all that stuff. Those are very expensive and good machines.
Yeah. Yeah, and something like that is, I mean, they're still that's still a ridiculous price. Something like that is a buy as is. Like they don't test them. Like the state just gets the warehouse just receives them from the state, and then they just turn around and sell them. They have no idea. Like you don't know if it works or whatever. But if you're mechanically inclined, it doesn't even matter. Like buying those two machines for $550, you could fix them for a couple $100 and still make thousands in profit, basically.
You absolutely could. I'm assuming you didn't get them, which is kind of
I
heartbreaking.
didn't. I maxed out at like I just didn't understand how the bid process worked. Basically, you can put in a max and then it'll like auto bid for you. I didn't want to put in a number that was like $100 more than what I could have could have done. So I just kept on bidding like $5 at a time. And after like 20 bids, I was like, this is getting really tiring and just putting like $5 higher than the next person every single time. So I stopped at like $500 and then they sold for like 550. I'm like, man, I was so close to locking it in.
Man,
I know.
yeah, that would have been a steal for you guys.
Yeah.
You mentioned this next question might be one of your favorite topics of the entire choosing an industrial machine. So let's get into it. But what are some of the red flags that you're looking at when you're trying to find a used machine?
Okay, so you're on Facebook. You're prowling the interwebs. You're looking around. You're trying to find your next sewing machine. What's the first thing you're going to notice? Photos. Are the photos good? Are they clear photos? Can you see the entire machine in the photo? If no, that's a problem. The best listing you're going to find has 3 to 4 pictures of the machine you're looking at. And if not, that's concerning. So send them a message and get more if you're actually interested. So that's red flag 1, is you don't have enough or not clear enough pictures. 2, if your listing is with 0 information that you're looking at, like there's just a sewing machine and that's it, even though you're looking at something that's going to cost you 2 grand or something, that's not enough information. Hopefully, again, they could tell you more information, but the other part of that is clear English. So like around here, for example, we have a lot of Spanish speakers, and if you're trying to buy something from someone that only speaks Spanish and you also speak Spanish, fantastic for you. My Spanish doesn't translate to exact parts on sewing machines or anything like that. So it's not great for me. What I need is someone who speaks my language exactly, so I can negotiate with them reasonably, understand the conditions of the machine, and so forth. So that's another thing, is make sure that you can actually effectively communicate with the person, because you're going to have to go meet up with them in person, and hopefully you're going to ask them good questions that will tell you as to the state of the machine. The other thing is, provided you have the clear photos, make sure it's not extremely roughed up. Like, don't spend a lot of money on a machine that looks like it has been left outside for 5 like years. Don't do that when a table is all beat up and there's no surface on the table, you're just looking at bare wood, or the metal paint that was on the machine got all scratched up. Those are all indicators that this has been neglected, abused, or it's been in a factory for 25 years and you're going to take it home and it's a brick. So those are the first kind of red flags to look for is condition. Make sure the listing is in your language and you can talk to the person. Make sure the listing has some information versus 2 words. And also just make sure that it's not completely scratched to hell, because that indicates bigger problems. When the exterior of a machine gets beat up, it is very likely that the inside has been beat up too.
What are you sewing with? Like steel wool, just like shove. Like,
I've seen it. Or like rust, for example. It's like, where
yeah.
did this get all like, yeah, we're in Florida and it's humid, but there's no way this got rusty like this without being left outside or something dumb. So look out for those things and make sure you actually get pictures. That is the most important part. Pictures and a video of the machine working. I'm not going to go pick up a machine if I don't see a video first. That's my take.
That's a really good observation. I hadn't thought about asking for that specifically, but I was messaging with someone the other day for a sewing machine, and she just happened to send me a video of it. And I realized after the fact, like, oh, that was actually really helpful. Like I can hear, if you've been sewing for any amount of time, then you like are very tuned to like hear what a machine should sound like. And you could hear it was clean. The needle was penetrating really cleanly. Like it was, the timing was good. Like you could obviously like you can't tell everything, especially me. I'm not a pro at all, but like just seeing that, I'm like, oh yeah, I should definitely ask for this more. Like this gives me a lot of confidence, especially like that machine's 2.5 hours away. Like I'm making a bit of a commitment to go out and get it. If I were to do that, like I want to know. So I was really glad that she sent that video.
Yeah, if you're going to commit your time to drive to go pick up some giant piece of equipment and haul it home, they can commit 30 seconds to turning their camera on and doing a very quick video for you to make it
Yeah.
ideal and worth it.
Hopefully these are people that know what it's like to buy one as well, and they're like, I've also been here. I want to, do a good job. What questions are you asking? So like, you're on Facebook Marketplace and it says like, hey, Carolyn, is this still available? What are you actually asking these people?
The first thing I say, hey, Carol, could you tell me more about the machine? How long have you owned the machine for? Could you send me a video of it working? Oh, I couldn't quite see this part. Could you take a picture of that for me so I can confirm this is what I'm looking for? I'll ask very pointed questions, and if they don't comply with the very pointed questions, then I move on immediately. Because if you can't answer something really simple like that, how did you get your hands on this to start with? And two, why should I give you my money for it? Maybe I'm Scrooge McDuck, but I guard my money carefully in that I'm not giving it away to strangers where they're going to try to scam me. So those are the main things. Very pointed questions that are going to get you what you want, which is proof of life that it works and that it doesn't make some horrific screeching noise when you turn it on or anything like that. And that when you take it home and reassemble it, that it's still going to be working at that point.
I was just going to ask for my personal information, but Jameson, you said that you were bidding on one that was through an auction. Obviously, that's a lot different than buying one through Facebook. When you were looking at this machine that was through an auction, did it give you this information? Did it tell you how long the machine had been used? Did it tell you what it had been used for? I mean, clearly there's going to be a pro and a con buying something on Facebook where you can talk to Carol and get all this information versus like you're buying kind of sight unseen, you're bidding for your life to get a really heck of a deal, like Matt said, on a machine. So there's going to be kind of pros and cons to that. But can you tell us your experience of if it gave you that information when you were going through the auction experience?
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to. So that's kind of the risk with the auction, is that they give you very limited amount of information. It'll give you like the product number. It'll give you all the information that the state auction person can put down in about 5 minutes, and they'll give you, I think it was 4 photos. I sent you the link to Matt, you may remember, but that's pretty much it. The photos are decent. They're not amazing. I could see the machine well. I could see that it wasn't really, really roughed up, but it was definitely taken on an iPhone 7 kind of deal. Like you're like, okay, I can zoom in some, but I'm not blowing this up at all. Stuff like that. It doesn't tell you where it's been used. That was kind of one of the things that Carter mentioned to me with the state surplus, because so there's the North Carolina state surplus. It's gonna get weird. And then there's the North Carolina State University surplus. University is really important there. We've opted to not buy machines from the North Carolina State University surplus because NC State has one of the biggest, I don't think it's biased to say one of the best like textile labs and departments in the country. They have a ton of machines. They have a whole soft goods design space. We've opted to not buy those because we imagine if they're not fixing them and using them in there, they could be getting rid of them for good reason. I'm not saying for anyone that lives in North Carolina, they shouldn't check it out, but I would want to ask more questions about that specifically if I could, because Carter's worked with the guy that does all the maintenance for them. He knows that he can fix just about anything. He's been like a 40-year sewing machine repair veteran. So like if they're getting rid of them, we kind of know. The state surplus, I was a little bit more comfortable with it because the state could access that machine through a lot of situations. A school could have, started a home ec program and then it got canceled a couple years later. Like there's just there's quite a few more options that they could have acquired that machine, but that is the risk. I have no idea how long it's been used for. I don't know like what the stitch number is. They really just say like, once you buy this, you have 10 days to pick it up. That's it. Like you're kind of just taking the risk.
Even sight unseen, that was such a deal. I would have ran. I would have ran towards it. I don't even know where I would have put them. I got no space for them. I would have done it.
Yeah.
Just because value is $10,000 probably for both of those combined, provided they're all working and they look good. The post photos weren't that horrible. They just weren't great.
Right.
But just looking, I was like, these look pretty good. And if it is what it is, then that's high value.
Yeah. I got two questions, I guess. The one that I have written down before too long is the naming moniker of these machines is insane. Like, there's no sewing machine out there that I know of that's like, oh, this is the Juki Slinger, and this is the Juki Basher. Like, they are the most confusing, annoying, difficult names, and they all use the same system. It's not like all Juki start with the letter or number 7, and like all brothers start with like, but they all just blend in. So how the heck do you start to tell? Like, is there any template you can give us to like help us kind of understand what the sewing machine model is at all, or do you really just have to Google it and like just figure it out?
It's kind of, I don't know. That's the problem is I don't know either. And that's the issue.
That says
is
something. Yeah.
Their branding is horrible in that regard. Like if you imagine you have some machine you want everyone to get, give it a name. People like, don't give me a number, a dash another number with some random acronym in front of it that I'll never know what it stands for. It's like, help me out here so that I can like, it's like, I had the 1541 -7. It's like, okay, cool. What's that mean? And unfortunately, I couldn't tell you. I just had to research it all.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's kind of all you can do. It's really tragic.
We always joke about like the naming systems with fabrics and stuff that like, 143 dynamic composite fabric or like VX07, like some of those things are hard to get used to. And maybe you just have to know, but like those things still make sense to me in the sense that like the V and the X and the 07, like they all stand for something. I haven't even noticed that similarity with machines even exactly. Like sometimes the big number, like I've seen it sometimes like the 5550 is like 5,550 stitches per minute kind of deal, but that doesn't even tell you like the weight or like walking, like, I don't know. It's weird.
There are some similarities that I see, like the 8700, one of the most common Juki machines, right? So then you also have a lot of machines in that class where it's like numbers randomly from 8,000 to 8,700 and beyond. It's like, okay, there's some similarity here.
Yeah.
It still doesn't give you the whole picture. And that's the only one I can really name that kind of has that linear progression like the fabrics do, where it's like, okay, well, we have VX03, VX07 and beyond.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's just kind of a research thing. And hopefully you know somebody that you can ask them that question, like, what does this mean and what is it, and help, and they can.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it gets kind of tough.
I was going to say we need to get the people who name nail polishes to start naming sewing machines because they get real specific.
Yeah. They're creative. All of them are different. Yeah.
It really should
You
be because
remember?
you just need it to be.
Yeah. You mentioned Juki being one of the first machines that you look for. Are there any specific model numbers that you can kind of off of the top of your head that are pretty generic that people can search for that might be, like we recommend for home machines is the Singer Heavy Duty 4411. Is there anything like that Juki related or Sailrite or other specific machine models that you can recommend for people to kind of look at after this episode?
So for industrial walking foots, look up the DNU 1541 or the 1181. That would be if you're working on packs, bags, that kind of thing. If you're looking for something light, like you're doing clothes and you don't need an overlock, because I don't really know anything, I can't recommend that for you. But if you are just looking for a straight stitch that's light, then the 8700, well, any of the 8300 to 8700 Jukis, somewhere you give those numbers, or even the 5550, or there's a lot of different machines in that cheaper range that are drop feed and are great for that. If you have deep pockets and you want a needle feed, which is kind of the middle ground between both of those, the Juki 9010 is the top of the line needle feed that you can buy. And they'll have varying ranges of automation and things. But again, deep pockets, but those are really, really good machines.
A place I forgot to mention earlier, it's an online store. This is where Carter bought his Juki. They have really good deals on used stuff. They also have some new machines, and they ship for a reasonable price. One thing that you do need to be aware of if you're going to buy a machine online versus in Facebook Marketplace is you're going to have to probably get this freight shipped. These machines weigh a lot, and they're kind of big for what they are. But it's called Zamir Sew. I'll link it down there, but it's Zamir. Zamir Sew. It's where Carter bought his. He was really, really happy with it. I've been looking on there every so often. You can get like 8,700 shipped for like 700, $800. It's not bad. I mean, that some of you may be gawking at that price, but it's like that is what you're gonna kind of pay if you're. The nice thing about doing it, some buying a machine from someplace like Zamir So is it's refurbished, like a refurbished mechanic has taken it in, checked it, stitched it, replaced a few things that they need to. It, like you get some confirmation, a lot of confirmation. It's almost like buying new, but it's used. But that's another option for on places to look.
I think that's one of the big hangups for people too, and maybe that's a whole topic on its own, is if you're going to look at a used machine and you know nothing about it at all, you're probably worried, is this going to work? Is anything broken on this? Well, I need to buy parts that I don't even know what they look like, or are they available? That's kind of another problem with dealing with the third party people, like going to Facebook or whatever. So if you do find a place that's local to you, like Zamir Sew, or you find Ralph's Industrial Sewing Machines, or there's a place in Alabama that's the Collier Equipment place. Like there's a bunch of different places that will refurbish and they'll also guarantee that one, the machine is going to be fine when you get it, and they also will help you get the parts, which is another thing.
Mm.
So like if you buy some random machine from some person you've never met before, and it's some Chinese clone of some Chinese clone of whatever, good luck finding the parts. It's going to be really difficult for you. And I'm guilty of that myself. Luckily, I haven't had to do that much. But the other part of that is sometimes if you research it, those parts will be the same as the authentic machines are too. So
Mm.
you save a lot of headache going to some sort of dealer, and you can also just go use it. Go touch the
Yeah.
machine, look at it, and use it, and make sure it's going to work for you.
Cool. So after we've asked our questions on Facebook and we decide we want to go see the machine, we're in person, what is going to be your kind of your checklist to go over the machine and what are you looking for?
So here's your checklist for what to bring with you, because I'm presuming you have to drive, which I always have had to do.
Not
Maybe
walking a
it's
machine home,
10
man.
hour. You're not, yeah, well, that or you're somebody else is dropping it off, or, but
Yeah,
most of the
yeah,
time
yeah.
you're going to take it apart if you buy it, and then you're going to bring it home with you. So the only thing you really need is an adjustable wrench to take apart these machines. It's actually really simple. You push the machine head back, you undo the pulley, you take the head of the machine off. Warning, it's very heavy most of the time, and then you take apart the table, and all you need is that one wrench and maybe a Phillips head screwdriver. So you only need really 2 tools. So that's your checklist for going there. The other thing is make sure you have the right form of payment. Sometimes you need cash, sometimes you don't. You can do Venmo or whatever. So that's on your way there. Once you're there, hopefully you brought your scrap fabrics with you, because now you're going to have to use the machine to make sure that it does exactly what you need it to be doing. So bring your 6 layers of X-Pack and your 3 layers of webbing that you can run the machine through. And if you start noticing horrible noises or it doesn't work, that's probably not the right choice for you, or it's just broken. And both of those are good bits of information to learn from the meetup. So that's the
Yeah.
other thing. Yeah, you turn it on, you start running it. Is anything scratching as it does its normal behavior of stitching? Is it actually operating? Am I missing, is the needle missing the hook and stitches aren't actually coming out? Those are things you all find out immediately once you start using it. The other thing is you can start opening the machine up and look inside. For someone who has no idea what to look at, maybe that's not super useful, admittedly. But you can open the machine up with this with your one screwdriver you brought, or hopefully the machine has a couple on it. And then you can look inside and see, again, is anything rubbing? Is this covered in rust? Does it make a horrible noise? Those are like your main red flags to look for in person. And the other thing is, if that person you meet, again, provides you no useful info, you might want to start running, because they don't know what they have, and you don't know where they got it either.
Industrial machines have a not insignificant amount of oil in them. What do you do with the oil, and how do you not get your car gross?
Ooh, that is such a good question, and I've learned from that mistake 3 times. Um,
Goodness.
from moving, because
Oh
moving
yeah,
from
yeah,
here to Colorado to back, or just, like, going to
yeah,
pick something up, I've had to to get something serviced, it's a mess.
sure.
So, I just sacrifice, like, a beach towel.
Okay.
That's been my newest strategy, is to sacrifice a beach towel, or just lay down an entire roll of paper towels in a box, and then put the
Oh
head of the
yeah,
machine into a box, so that it, because transport is difficult, because
yeah,
the head of the machine is heavy, it's bulky, the bottom is all going to be covered in oil, and it's definitely going to leak out. You just don't know how
yeah,
much.
yeah.
So that is a consideration beforehand too, is where the heck are you going to put this thing? And if you have a tiny car, you still can do it, because again, your biggest part will just be the actual, 2.5 foot by 4 foot tabletop.
Yeah.
It's not the heaviest part, but it'll be the biggest part. So storage is kind of tricky, admittedly.
Now we know why Matt has seat covers in his car.
Yeah,
But
literally, yes. Yeah.
so let's, I mean, Matt, you've got an SUV. Let's assume people have at least an SUV kind of deal. They buy this machine, pulling the head off. You're draining the oil into like a gallon bucket or something? There's like a milk jug or something like that, or
It depends on the machine. So some will have, like, so the needle feed behind me has a oil pan underneath it.
yep. Okay.
God, this thumbs up thing. But yeah,
I
so
know
it
it's
has an
weird.
oil pan, and that you can just drain. That
Okay.
has a easy plug at the bottom. You pull it out, you drain that into whatever you need to bring it with you if
Cool.
it's clean, or get rid
Sure.
of it if it's not. But another machine like the 1541, you're just pulling oil into the top, so it's kind of dispersing through wicks in the machine. There's
So
actually
there's no
not
like,
that much underneath. There's no
okay.
reservoir.
Yeah.
Yeah, so is it still covered in oil if you were to put your hands on it?
Sure.
100%. So that's why you're using the precautions of some sort of disposable towel, or a beach towel, or
Okay.
whatever you have.
Yeah.
So yeah, drain the oil to transport, but a lot of the time you won't have that. That's kind of a feature of newer machines, is to have the oil pan at the bottom.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because I'm familiar, the High Lead in here and Carter's machine, which are the two industrial machines I use the most. Those both have oil pans. So I was thinking of just like a pool of oil. Okay, so then like I would imagine in your car, you probably can't just slide the whole table in, can you? Or would you like take the tabletop off from the legs? You can put the whole thing in there.
I can, but I don't. It would
Okay.
fit, but it's very difficult to get it in. I think the other
Yeah.
part is, most of the time I've done this, I've had to do it myself. So I always do take it apart.
Yeah.
Like in
Yeah.
college, I had a buddy help me on the way home, or whatever, but like
Yeah.
now it's mostly just I'm doing this.
Yeah.
So I will take the legs off. Well, I'll take the head of the machine off first, put that somewhere safe, and then load that last. Then I'll take the metal K legs or K stand, whatever you want to call it, off of the table itself. Then I'll slide the tabletop in after getting rid of the thread tower or whatever's screwed
Sure.
in or bolted onto it. Again, leave that for last because that's probably the most delicate part. Table first, then the legs, then the head of the machine, and then whatever other junk that came along with it. The tiny drawer or the
Sure.
thread stand that came with it.
Okay. That makes sense. That is confidence inducing because there's a machine I might pick up tomorrow and I'm gonna have to go get it myself. And I was like, how am I going to load this? So I was thinking about taking the work van, but I might just take my car because it's easier. And now that I have some confirmation, I could get that in my car. I'd rather do that because driving a work van is not that fun, especially when that's like hollowed out. It's like loud and bouncy and noisy, and you're just like chugging down the road. Anyway,
If you have the capability, I would bring the van.
you would.
100%. Yeah,
I
I
just don't know how
would
I'm going to load it
because
in there myself.
if you have one person to come help you lift it into the van and
Yeah,
then take it out, you're
I
good.
was just gonna. Yeah, because I was just gonna strap it down. Then it'd be super easy. You wouldn't have to do almost anything.
Because it's going to take you an hour and a half to get the table back together. So you're going to
Yeah,
spend time there taking it apart,
yeah,
looking like a
yeah,
maniac. And then you're going to have to come home and then do the same thing again
yeah,
immediately because
yeah.
you don't want it all in pieces forever. You want to get it built.
Sure.
So save yourself the 2 hours, man. If you could, and you have like a pickup truck or the van,
Yeah.
100% do do. It'd be
Okay, that
worth
is
it.
good to know. All right, let's talk about the dough. How much money we're going to spend? What kind of budget we need to look at? What's a good? I don't know. What can you give us a price bracket? I know what I'm looking for, so I guess I could provide something here. But like, what would you give a reasonable price bracket for people that are looking for their first industrial machine?
First machine, cheap end, I've seen industrials for $200. That's a steal, but
Yeah.
I've seen it and it's not super uncommon. High end of that, it of course depends on your budget and how serious you are. I wouldn't spend more than $1,500 for your first used industrial machine. That feels like too much, in my opinion. Now, have I spent more than that in a machine? Yeah, of course I have. I'm a lunatic. But if it's your first machine, not worth it. You can
I'm
find
looking to
something
spend
cheaper.
$700 or less. Frankly, I mean that's like kind of roughly my zone. I'd like to shoot in like the 500 range, but like if I find the perfect Juki 1541 7, like the right one, then yeah, I'd spend $700 on it.
Well, now you got to tell us what you're picking up.
I've looked at so many sewing machine models that I'm honestly having a hard time keeping track of all of them. But this machine, so I got to look at it. There's actually two machines I might pick up. There's a Necky Serger that's like $100. It's really nice. That one's pretty close. That one's like 30 minutes away. But this one's a Juki DDL 8300N.
Okay. I have a feeling that you're going to have a tougher time with your backpacks,
Yeah,
but it will be just fine for most things.
that's
That's my
why
guess.
kind of why I'm on the fence about it. It's also the one that's 2 hours away, which is I'm especially like I don't know if I want to invest in that, but it's 450, so a
450.
pretty good price. But
Did they send you a video?
yeah, it's the latest in the video.
Did they describe the machine to you in English?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's not
all
bad
good
then.
signs.
Yeah.
All good signs. Yeah. I lost my place on the outline. Matt and I get talking. All right, so roughly how much money you want to spend? If you buy online, like I mentioned earlier, you do need to be aware of shipping. It's going to be like a freight shipment, so it's not like UPS or USPS isn't just going to like carry a machine box to your door. Like this thing weighs, I don't even know how much a sewing machine and table probably weigh 100 pounds, 80 pounds.
At least, yeah.
Yeah.
At least maybe 150. Depends, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it depends on the machine. All right. So like we're kind of working through the timeline here. Let's assume you have the machine in your house now. You've bought one. Congrats. What sort of maintenance things do you need to know? I mean, maybe you're a bad person to ask considering you've never done or you've barely done any maintenance on your machine. But like, what do you need to know just to keep it like what for oiling? Just like what do you need to know to keep it running?
Get the junk out of all the moving parts. Like if there's lint or dust or thread sitting around anywhere, just go ahead and get rid of that the best you can. I've heard people say don't use like a compressed air can or the compressed air blowers. I do that anyway. Sorry. those people. You can also just clean it with a towel of some kind of paper towel or a Q-tip. Tweezers, you can scrape and pull stuff out of those inner parts of the machine. Again, I love the compressed air. I refuse to not do it. The other thing is just oil. So you can open the machine up, put oil on the needle bar. You can find the different spots on the top of the machine where there's little spots to drip oil into. Mine just has a wick right on the top. It's got like a little see-through plastic and a hole, and it's like very obvious. Oil here. This is the place, and you just pour oil into that, and it wicks out to the rest of the machine somewhat effectively. Those are the beginning things I would do. If it came with a needle, just go ahead and throw it out, get a new one. You don't want to trust, those removable, disposable parts. Just replace it right away.
Change
Beyond
the
that,
needle more
that's it.
often in general.
Yeah, but beyond that, that's it. I wouldn't do much else other than just test it out. Like
Yeah,
hopefully you did when you were there, but make
sure.
sure that everything is reassembled correctly. The other thing is make sure that like the pulley that So you have your hand wheel on the side, right? And that's your mechanism for going up and down. Your pulley needs to be at the exact right height with your motor. And you can get a different pulley if that's what you want, but you can also just position the motor up and down. And sometimes that will
Mhm.
move as you're transporting it. And I guess I forgot to mention that in the moving part, but yeah, you're going to have to unbolt the motor. Hopefully it's a
Okay.
servo motor and it's very light, but those aren't super nasty and they're not necessarily as big as the rest of the table. So it's not too much to worry about.
When you say unbolt the motor, you mean like unscrew it and take it off the table?
So mine underneath is legit. It's big bolts, nuts, washers,
Yeah.
and then the top is like a flat, like rounded, like dome on the top of that bolt. So that's how mine is attached, is just with three giant bolts. And so that's where those adjustable pliers come in. You just loosen it up a little bit, and then you
Mhm.
can just do the rest by hand and just slide the motor off.
Okay. So yeah, you mean like fully like take that motor off the table and like put it in a box or something?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Because
That's
you're
good to
trying to
know.
separate every part because everything is heavy. That's kind of
Yeah.
the issue with moving this stuff is individually each part, they're all heavy and it's all going to slide around, and expect a hurricane in your trunk as you're doing this because it's heavy. So ideally you're separating stuff as much as you can so it doesn't crush each other, doesn't scratch each other or just break tiny parts.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. So now you get the machine home. Let's assume you have to do some amount of reassembly. What sort of tests or checklists are you running through just to make sure it is set up correctly now once you have it home?
So your main thing is going to be your tension. Assuming that you tested this while you were there, your tension looked fine enough for you to take it home. But that's another thing to check is your tension discs. Make sure that those aren't either way too tight or not tight at all. And then make sure that both are tensioned correctly, the bobbin tension and then also the top
Mhm.
tension. I think the other part, actually, that's it. I wouldn't do too much other than just run fabric underneath it that you intend to
Yeah.
use. That really is the only test that really matters. Is once you do that, you see all the noises, all the scary stuff that could happen. You've learned quickly the limitations.
Sure. It's kind of the nice thing about sewing machines in general, especially industrial machines. They are really resilient. Like they were designed to be put into an industrial place where you're sewing on them for many, many hours a day and sort of designed to be abused. Not that you should do that to your machine, but you're gonna have a hard time like really torching a machine, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a reason it's all made from like steel or cast iron. I mean,
Yeah.
it's on purpose. It's meant to be banged around the factory for 25 years. So the odds are, as a DIYer or like a small business, you're not going to destroy your machine like it would be if it was some
Yeah.
clothing factory for that duration of time. I mean, I've downright done despicable things using these machines, and it's like it's always recoverable. It's always
Yeah.
fine. Like corrugated plastic and like half-inch stacks of webbing and stuff just to see what happens, and it's fine. Um,
Yeah.
but again, that's not going to be everybody. But those machines
Sure.
they'll withstand most of the time. And if you do hurt something, well, it turns out it's all made of metal and you can readjust it to fix it. That's the main benefit to me of this versus a home machine.
I think about the needle sort of being like the crumple zone of a car too. Like luckily your normal your needle normally breaks before you do something to like the motor or something crazy, which is kind of nice. Like, don't get too close. If you're going through thick stuff, just I did this a couple weeks ago. I was doing something kind of intense. Like I got pretty close and the needle just like snapped and it hit my face. And I was like, oh, that was almost really bad. So PSA, if you're gonna be doing crazy stuff, make sure you wear glasses or don't get really close to it. But like that protects the machine from getting too roughed up. The needle's gonna break first. And you're like, oh, well, I guess I did that wrong.
The crumple zone is exactly right. It's your bumper. You
Yeah.
know, it's stopping
Yeah.
you from your stupid decisions half the time.
Yeah. And it reminded me to change the needle. So that was helpful, I guess. Cool. Well, I do want to give one caveat. If you are going to go meet people on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, please be safe and aware. Check, let somebody know, meet in a good public place. Do all those things that you know you should do if you're going to meet with a random person or a stranger in public. But I'm about to do it too, so I do trust it enough. I would recommend checking it out. Just be wise. Be wise about it. Matt, is there anything that we missed that we didn't cover in this whole buying a used sewing machine thing? Anything else that you would recommend to people?
One thing I didn't mention was negotiating. That'll be up to you to decide if you're a good negotiator or not and are willing to pay the listing price. For one or two of these, I was happy to pay the listing price because I was completely ignorant and I was like, that seems fine. I'll do it. Otherwise, you can negotiate with people for sure. It's hard to sell industrial sewing machines because the user base and someone who's going to buy it is very small. That is a small population of people who are going to buy an industrial machine on Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah.
So you actually have quite a bit of leverage to get the price lower to what you are actually cool with paying because that listing has probably been there for 16 weeks. It's not like these people aren't moving their machines around very quickly and selling them. So you absolutely can negotiate. And honestly, I'm a big proponent of balling on a budget. So like that's every used machine I've gotten, it's been a great screaming deal. And it's just because I was willing to negotiate and I wasn't super impatient with getting it. Because that's the other thing is you need to troll around for a while to find exactly what you're looking for. If you're not willing to wait a little bit, then you're going to spend more money. But I got my Bartek machine from a local factory, and I actually ended up making a decent friendship with the owners and
Mhm.
ended up working with them just a little bit. They did stuff for me. They weren't the best, but they were okay. And anyway, I got the Bartek for $900 and made some friends along the way, and that was a
Yeah.
really good deal, and it still works. So I didn't spend the $3,000 on the Juki or more. Actually, they're probably a little more than that now. Uh, because I was willing to wait, and that is
Yeah.
a good thing is practice patience when you're looking for these machines because you're not going to just have a beautiful magazine of everything you want in your Facebook marketplace right away.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good reminder. Patience is definitely key. Little bonus section. Let's just take a second. If you are a few accessories that you may need once you get your industrial machine home, I definitely recommend getting some sort of lighting system around your machine. Every machine pretty much comes with a light, but it's basically never enough. So add a few more lights, whether it's a magnet light or you get a table mount light, something like that. I'm a huge proponent of magnets. I talked about it on the last episode. There's a reel that you'll see with magnets, but get some magnets to put your thread snips or your lighter or some stuff there. Um, get some marking pencils or some chalk, a Sharpie if you're really unorthodox like me. What are there other like small couple dollar items that you would throw on a new machine?
You know, you talked about lights, and I like those little LED lights. Fine, I have them on a couple here, but there's two other types of lights I also like, and one of them is an LED strip, which will go
Mm,
under
yeah,
the throat of I guess
like
yeah, the
on the
throat of the
arch kind of
machine.
deal. Yeah,
Yeah, underneath, so that lights up that big dark area.
yeah,
And the other one is an architect light. And I actually have, I think, old school YouTube videos on both of these, but there's an
yeah,
architect light that will have a swivel. It is so cool. It is adjustable, it's color, temp, changeable. I love having that on my main space, and it's just the perfect light for like
yeah.
$50, and it's totally worth it.
Yeah. Lighting is huge. I told this story a little bit, but I helped my sister sew something in December, and the lighting was so bad in the dining room and on our machine that I ended up just like wearing the headlamp for like 2 hours. I wouldn't I wouldn't overlook that. Honestly, a headlamp looks exactly where you want the light to be. But if you don't want to do something ridiculous, then definitely buy like an architect light or something like that. Maybe that's a new reel, Avery. Maybe I'll record some of those this week and like get clips of the lights that we have here, because we have the same thing, like the LED strip under the throat, or like kind of in a throat plate. We have the architect light. Carter's big on lighting, so like each machine has like 3 lights on it, and it makes a huge difference. It really does when you're getting in those tight spaces. All right. Well, Matt, it's always super fun to chat with you. I'm really pumped. I mean, like, I'm stoked to get my machine now and really excited to get into this. If anybody has questions about buying a used machine, feel free to comment, send us some fan mail. I bet Matt would be willing to answer 1 or 2 questions if people had some extra stuff. So let us know. But yeah, we're really excited to hear about some machines that you guys are looking at out there. And as always, let us know, like, rate, comment, subscribe, review, do whatever you got to do. Make sure you go check out Matt, Red Paw Packs on Instagram, and I think redpawpacks.com as well.
Yep, nailed it. And I mentioned this in the last one too, but feel free to DM me if you have questions about a listing you saw. I actually got a couple people that did that last time,
Oh, really?
and
That's awesome.
they were happy to get a second set of eyes on it.
Yeah.
So feel free to.
Yeah. I've been using Matt as my personal sewing machine helper the last couple weeks too.
You weren't the only one. So
That's
yeah, I'm
awesome.
happy to do that for people because it's easy to quickly identify the things
Yeah.
we talked about today, and I like helping people get their first machines.
Yeah. Cool. All right, everybody. Thank you.